I will start off this course by just giving a quick explanation of what Microsoft Excel is. Excel is a spreadsheet program from Microsoft, enabling users to format, organize, and calculate data in a spreadsheet. Excel contains many boxes called cells that are ordered in rows and columns. Data is placed in these cells. Excel is part of the Microsoft and Office 365 suites and can be used with other applications in the Office suite. The spreadsheet software is available for Windows, Mac OS, Android, and iOS platforms. Let me give you a quick history of Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel was released in 1985 under the name of Microsoft Multiplan. Microsoft's spreadsheet program competed with similar products at the time, including Lotus 1, 2, and 3 from the Lotus Development Corp. Although Lotus 1, 2, and 3 was reportedly the first spreadsheet to introduce cell names and macros, Multiplan used a graphical user interface and enabled users to point and click using a mouse. Multiplan made it easier to manipulate, process, and view spreadsheet data. In 1990, Microsoft released version 3 of Excel with features such as toolbars, 3D charts, and drawing and outlining capabilities. Version 4 came along 2 years later and added the autofill function. In 1993, version 5 of Excel was released. This version included Visual Basic for application macros, which enabled regular tasks to be automated. The current version of Excel, version 16, was released in 2019. Since its conception, Microsoft Excel has become one of the most widely used business applications and is often paired with other Microsoft apps such as Word, Outlook, and PowerPoint. Although Microsoft no longer updates Excel as different versions, it rolls out new features and updates automatically over time. Microsoft Excel is arguably one of the most powerful spreadsheet applications and has long since played a role in businesses and with individuals. However, with the popularity of other current spreadsheet software, Excel has now increased competition, which includes Google Sheets. Google Sheets is used by approximately 2 billion users every month, whereas Microsoft Excel has an estimated 750 million to 1.2 billion monthly global users. The main difference, in my opinion, is that Excel has an offline and online application version, whereas Google Sheets is only for online use and does not have the full capabilities of Microsoft Excel. Common uses in Excel. Excel is most commonly used in a business setting. For example, it is used in business analysis, human resource management, operations management, and performance reporting. Excel uses a large collection of cells formatted to organize and manipulate data and solve mathematical functions. Users can arrange data in the spreadsheets using graphs, pivot tables, and formulas. Here with the terminology of Excel and its components. Excel has its own terminology for its components, which new users may not immediately find understandable. Some of these terms and components include the following. A cell. This is where a user will enter data, and a cell is at an intersection of a row and a column. A cell reference. Cell reference refers to the set of coordinates where the cell is located. Rows are horizontally numbered, whereas columns are vertical and assigned with a letter. The cell reference would indicate the intersection of the column letter and the row number, in this case C6. Active cell. The active cell is the currently selected cell outlined by a green box. When you click on a cell, you will see the cell reference shown in the name box here. A workbook. Workbook is the Excel file that contains one or more worksheets. So basically what you are seeing here is the workbook that is currently open on sheet 1. Worksheets. These are the different documents nested within a workbook. So in this case, we are on sheet 1. A worksheet tab. These are the tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet, as you can see now. Sheet 1, Sheet 2, Sheet 3. Column and row headings. These are the numbered and lettered cells located just outside of the columns and rows. Column headings and row headings. A formula. A formula is a mathematical equation, cell references or functions that can be placed inside a cell to produce a value. Formulas must always start with an equal sign. Equal sign. A formula bar. This is the long input bar that is used to enter values or formulas in cell. It is located here at the top of the worksheet next to this FX label. The address bar. Address bar is located to the left of the formula bar and shows the number and letter coordinates of the active cell as explained earlier. Autofill. This feature enables users to copy data to more than one cell automatically. We will be covering autofill a bit later on in this course. AutoSum. This feature enables users to add multiple values. Users can select the cells they want to add and press the Alt and equal keys. Again, we will cover the AutoSum function a bit later in the course. Pivot tables. This data summarization tool sorts and calculates data automatically. Unfortunately, we will not be covering pivot tables in this specific course, but you can find it in one of my more advanced courses. Pivot charts. This chart acts as a visual aid to the pivot table. Again, pivot charts are a more advanced feature which can be found in one of my more advanced Excel courses. What competitors are there to Excel? Even though Excel might be one of the most recognizable spreadsheet programs, other vendors offer competing products. Examples are Google Sheets, Numbers, which is Apple's spreadsheet program, and Apache OpenOffice Calc. That is it for this section on a brief history and what Excel is. Please join me in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will explain a little bit more about Excel workbooks. In Microsoft Excel, the data you enter, whether it consists of numbers, text, or formulas, is stored in a file known as a workbook. Workbooks are just like huge electronic books with pages, or in Excel they are called sheets, that have been ruled into columns and rows. Before using Excel, it's helpful to know what the various parts and elements are that make up a workbook. A worksheet, or a page, inside a workbook contains columns and rows as explained in the previous lesson. Each worksheet contains 16,384 columns that are labeled using letters of the alphabet. The first column in the worksheet is labeled column A, and the very last column is labeled XFD. The worksheet or page inside a workbook contains rows that are labeled with a number. In each worksheet, there are 1,048,576 rows. First row will be number 1 and the last row will be number 1,048,576. Where a column and a row intersect, we get what is known as a cell. You enter your data into these cells. Each cell in a worksheet can hold up to 32,767 individual characters, although it would be quite unrealistic to ever push it this far. Cells are referred to by their column and row labels. For example, on the screen now, the cell we are pointing to would be B4, as it lies at the intersection of column B and row 4. When you start typing something, you want it to appear somewhere in the worksheet. As a consequence, when the status bar shows ready, as you can see at the bottom here, it says ready, at least one cell in the worksheet will be highlighted. This is known as your active cell. In the screen above, the active cell is B3. Notice that the column label and the row label also appears colored to indicate the active cell. You can have more than one active cell. As you can see, when you highlight a whole lot of cells like this, when this occurs, you have what is known as a range. So in this case, the range would start at B3 and end at F8. A workbook, as you would expect, is made up of pages known as worksheets. You can have as many worksheets in your workbook as what your computer resources can accommodate. As a default, a new blank workbook normally has either 1 or 3 open sheets, which would be labeled Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. Of course, these labels are pretty boring and meaningless, and it can be changed, which is something that we will be covering later on in the course. To insert a new worksheet, there is a little button next to the last worksheet. You'll see a little plus here, which you can just press and it would insert a sheet. You will also see that it inserted sheet 4 next to sheet 1. That is because I had sheet 1 open, so it will always insert the sheet next to your current active sheet. If I press on sheet 2 and insert, it would put the next sheet next to that one, and so on. That ends this lesson on workbooks, and I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will explain a bit more about how to navigate in a workbook. First thing you can do is use your keyboard's arrow keys. So you can move to the right, you can move down, you can move left, you can move up. The tab button will move one cell to the right. When you hit the return or the enter button, it would take you to the next row from the cell where you started tabbing. Just a quick explanation. If we start with C2, we tab all the way to M2. When I hit the return or enter button, it will take me here to C3, as you can see there. Control Home, holding the control button and pressing the home button will take you to the very start of the worksheet. Control End would take you to the very end of the data entered. So to explain, I'll just scroll down as you can see here, and I'll move to, so right now we are at cell number BQW206, as you can see here. So let me just type something in here. I will press Control Home. It will take me back to A1, the first cell in the worksheet. So when I press Control End, so Control End takes you to the very last column and row where you have entered data. As you can see, it takes us back to cell number BQW206, as you can see here. When you hit the Home button, it would keep you on the same row but take you to the very first column. So, for instance, the beginning of the line. If you press your page down button, it would basically take you down one set of rows. So let's just give you an example here. The very last row that's visible on the page now is row number 228. So when I press page down, 228 will be the first row shown on your screen, and so on. When you press page up, it would just reverse what you've just done and go up one screen. The F5 button would allow you to navigate to a specific sheet inside your workbook. And then, of course, you get your normal scroll bars, which is this bar here or this bar here. You can use this to go up or right and left, as you can see here. Why the scroll bar looks like this at the moment is because we've got data entered in a high numbered column and row. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to type text or numbers into a worksheet. Generally, when you start a new spreadsheet project, the first task is to enter some headings into the rows and columns. To type anything into the worksheet, you need to make the cell into which you would wish to enter the data active. As explained before, this can be done in numerous ways. You can use your arrow keys, you can use your tab key, but the most common way would just be to click on the cell you want to start typing into. I am selecting cell number B2 for a reason. As we build onto this little spreadsheet project we will be creating during the course, you will understand why. So for this course, I'll just use a general monthly expenses by a normal household. So what we can do is, so I will list the months of the year as the column headings and the type of monthly expense as the row headings. So let's start with January, or simply just Jan, it's your choice. February. So what I'm doing after I've entered my text into the cell, I press the tab key, which then takes me to the cell to the right of the one that I've typed the text into. So January, February, March, you can simply just click on the cell as well. I just use the tab function, makes it a bit easier. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. So I'm going to stop there just to show you. As you can see, September got cut off because it is a bit bigger than the width of the cell. I'm going to leave it like that, as we will be getting to formatting later on in the course. November and December. Then in the columns, or in each new row, I will put the specific monthly expense. So let's do rent, we'll do electricity, we'll do groceries, we'll do car, fuel, medical, school, we'll do entertainment, and that is fine for now. We can always build onto this as we carry on with the course. So this gives you an idea of how you can enter data on an Excel worksheet. I will see you in the next course. In this lesson, I will show you how to perform simple formulas in a worksheet. The whole idea behind Excel is to get it to perform calculations. In order for it to do so, you need to type formulas in the worksheet. Usually these formulas reference existing numbers or even other formulas already in the worksheet using the cell address, which I've explained, of these numbers rather than the actual value in them. Formulas must be typed beginning with an equal sign, as explained, like this. So what we would do is just get some numbers for each one of these expensive, and we'll just enter some random amounts in under January and February for this specific lesson. So let's just say 1800 here. I will explain how we can add a specific currency sign in front of the 1800 later on, but for now we'll just type random numbers. So 1800 on rent, and in February 1800 on rent. Electricity, let's just make that 200, and in February make it to 20. Groceries, let's just say 700 and 650. Monthly expense on a car, let's just say 500, 500. Fuel 140, 120. Medical 250, 250. School fees 600, 600. And entertainment 400, and let's say 250. Okay, so once you've entered your actual values, we need to now perform a simple formula. So in this case, we want to add the total of all the expenses for January. So what we can do, I'll show you the long way and then just a quicker way of doing it as well. So as I explained, a formula uses the name of the specific cell. So in this case, the rent for January would be B3. So what we would do, we would say equal B3. As you can see, B3 is highlighted, plus B4. B4. B4 would be highlighted in a different color, plus B5, plus B6, plus B7, plus B8, plus B9, plus B10. When your formula is done, you can just hit the return or enter button and it would show you the total of all of this. Now let's do it for February, but I'm going to use a different method to do it for February. As explained, this formula bar, you can either type it in here or you can type it in the actual cell. So let's change things up. Let's type this formula in the formula bar. So again, we start with equal. We'll say sum. If you want to use the sum, you need to open brackets and put your number, the first value that you want to sum. So in this case, it would be C3. We will put a colon and we will put C10, and you close your brackets and hit the return button. So now we've done it two different ways. In this one, we just individually added each cell, and in this one, we did a sum function. Just to show you that it works the other way around, let's do the sum function here. So open brackets, B3 and B10, close brackets. As you can see, it highlights the whole range. Hit enter, and it obviously will give you the same value as the previous one. Let's just delete that one, and that ends this lesson. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will explain a bit more about filling a series. A series refers to a sequence of ordered entries in adjacent cells, such as days of the weeks, or month of the year, or numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. This fill technique can be used to create these in the worksheet for you, reducing the amount of time taken to enter the data and also ensuring that your spelling is correct. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to remove the months February, March, well, February to December. Let's just delete that. So you'll click on the first cell that you want to start your series. As you can see at the bottom of the cell, there's a little block here, and it changes your cursor to a black plus sign. When you click on this and you drag it, you'll see here that it shows February, March, April, May, and let's drag it all the way to December. If you carry on, it would start with January again, as Excel would think that you would want to carry on to the next year. So then leave your mouse button and it would fill the series for you like this. What you can also do is, I'm just going to type January in here. You can also do it down the rows instead of across the columns like this. Okay, another example would be to say, let's put quarter 1. So I will just explain to you. Because there are 4 quarters to make up one, it would go quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then again quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would just not make sense to have quarter 5. Next example can be first day. Okay, so first day, second day, third day. This is however not bound by anything, so it would just carry on, as you can see here. Okay, and then if you want to do numbers, so numbers work a bit different. If you just put 1 and you pull it down, it would keep showing 1. You have to, in this case, explain to Excel what you want to do with the series. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. You can then highlight this range and then start creating your series. Now you can see Excel sees that you want to add on 1 to every one of them, so it would carry on with your series. If we want to do 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, Excel knows that you want to add 2, so it would then go 8, 10, 12, and so on. Just a little explanation of how filling a series works in Excel. Thank you, and I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how you can add or insert and remove or delete worksheets. As you can see, I've only got our main sheet, sheet 1. I've removed sheet 2 and 3 from this specific lesson. So there are a couple of ways that you can insert a worksheet. As explained previously, you can do it by simply clicking on the plus button, which would pop up new sheet there, and it would add new sheets there. To remove a sheet, you can simply right click on it and press delete. Now, the very important thing about deleting a worksheet, it cannot be undone. So you cannot simply use the undo button. So if you have data in a worksheet and you delete that sheet by accident, make sure that you constantly save your work as you carry on so that you can simply close the file and open it again to retrieve that data. If you delete the worksheet by mistake and then save after that, unfortunately that worksheet will be lost. So let me just delete this worksheet again here. The second way to insert a worksheet would simply be to right click on a specific sheet and say insert worksheet. You'll see worksheet is highlighted there, and press OK. You will see that this inserts the worksheet to the left of your active sheet. Then the last way would be to use your shift and the F11 button. So shift and F11. So it would insert it to the left of the specific worksheet that was active. If we click on this worksheet here and we use the same way to do it, it would put one to the left of that one. If we use the plus button, it would put it to the right. So let's say we want to insert the worksheet between 13 and 14, you'll just press it there and it would put the new worksheet there. Let me just delete all these worksheets. And that ends this lesson on how to insert and delete worksheets. In this lesson, I will show you how to copy a worksheet within an Excel workbook. Just as you can copy the contents of a cell and ranges within a worksheet, you can also copy or duplicate a worksheet within a workbook. I will show you a couple of ways that you can do this. The first and most common way would be to make sure that you've got the Home tab, as you can see on top here. Home tab open. You will go to this part here where cells are. You'll see there's a format button there. If you click here, it would give you an option that says move or copy sheet. So let's click on that. Now it's in book 1, which is our current book. Book 1, which is the workbook. Where do you want this? Do you want it before sheet 1 or move it to the end? So let's just leave it as it is before sheet 1 and you tick the box that says create a copy. Press OK, and as you can see there's now sheet 1 and sheet 1 with the number 2 in brackets, showing that this is a duplicate of sheet 1. The next method you can use is by simply right clicking on sheet 1 and it would show again move or copy. Click on that. Now let's move this to the end. Click on create a copy. OK, and now you'll see that it shows number 3. So this is sheet 1, the second duplicate of sheet 1 and the third duplicate of sheet 1. Then another method we can use is, let's just do this one. Right click, move or copy, and where do we want it? Now that we've got a couple of sheets, we want this one between sheet 1 2 and sheet 1. So you'll click on sheet 1 because you want to put it before sheet 1. Click on create a copy, and as you can see it placed it there. And that ends this lesson on how to copy a worksheet. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson I will show you how you can rename a worksheet. As a standard, Excel worksheets will be labeled sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, etc. as you've seen. So every time you add a new sheet, it would add one to the last sheet that you've created. So as you can see, this one is now sheet 22. Let's just delete that one. So 2 ways to do this. First one would be simply to double click and you'll see that it's highlighted, and let's just call this main sheet. After you've renamed it, you can press enter, The second method, we'll do this one here. You right click on it and say rename, and then we'll just call this second sheet or whatever you want to call it, and it is renamed. The name of a worksheet can contain up to 31 characters, but just remember that the longer the name of your worksheet, the harder it will be for you to easily navigate through all the worksheets, so it's always better to just keep it short. And that ends this lesson on how to rename your worksheets. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to change the tab color of a specific worksheet or multiple worksheets. This makes it easier for you to distinguish between worksheets, so Excel enables you to change the color of the worksheet tabs. What you can do is simply right click on the worksheet tab color you want to change. You'll see there's an option here that says tab color. When you hover over that, it would give you a normal standard color palette, or you can always click on more colors and it would give you some more colors to choose. So let's just make this one a nice light blue. Press OK. Now, as you can see, it hasn't shown the effects, but it has made it a little bit of a gradient light blue. When you click on another sheet, you will see that the color that you've selected is now visible. You will also see that the font color is black on this because the color of the tab is a lighter scheme color. So let's change this one to something darker, like make it a dark green. Now you can see Excel automatically makes the font color white so that you are able to read the name of your worksheet. If you want to do 2 or more worksheet tabs as the same color, you can simply click on the one, hold the Control key and click on the second one. So you'll see that both of them are highlighted now. Right click and let's make these ones red, and you'll see that they are both red. And that ends this lesson on how to change the tab colors of your worksheets. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how you can freeze specific rows or and columns, so that in a case like this where you have quite a lot of data, if you scroll down, you'll see that the column headings have now disappeared. If I scroll to the right, the row headings have disappeared. So we'll start with just freezing a specific row. So we want to freeze all these column headings here, so basically row number 2. So first way you can do it is to click on the very left, the very first column in the cell under the row that you want to freeze. So in this case, we want to freeze row 2, so we'll click on A3. You'll navigate to the View tab. You'll see there's an option here that says Freeze Panes. Click on the little button there and just click on Freeze Panes. Now you'll see there's a line that's visible under this specific row. When you scroll now, you'll see that it stays in place and you will always know what the column heading is. To unfreeze it again, you can just simply say unfreeze panes. You cannot unfreeze it by using the undo button. If we want to freeze the specific column here, we'll need to click on the very first row again next to the column. So we want to freeze column A, we'll click in row 1 by B, so B1, and we'll say freeze panes. Now you can see that the line goes down, which means this column is frozen. If we scroll to the right now, the headings stay in place. Let's unfreeze again. Second method would basically just be to highlight the entire row or clicking on the row label, below the one you want to freeze, do the same thing, as you can see there, and this automatically works for the columns as well, as you can see there. Now we want to freeze this whole column and this whole row. So to do this, you will click on the specific cell to the right of the column you want to freeze and below the row you want to freeze. So we'll leave it there and click freeze panes, and now the row and the column and the row are both frozen, as you can see there. As you can see, when you scroll down, the frozen rows would follow, and when you scroll to the right, the columns would also follow, so that you will always know where you are and what the heading is for a specific cell. And that ends this lesson on how to freeze rows and columns in an Excel worksheet. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how you can select ranges, rows, and columns in an Excel worksheet. Let's start with ranges. So with ranges, you can use two methods. A range would specifically refer to a whole number of cells together. So we want to select all these numbers, all the values here. So that would be starting with B3 and ending with M11. Two ways to do it. I'll show you the keyboard method first. You will navigate to the first cell in the range you want to select by simply clicking on it or using your navigation arrows on the keyboard. You'll hold the shift button. You can either go down and go to the right until they're all selected, or you can go to the right first and then go down with your navigation buttons. This selected range can then be formatted. You can change the font size, the type of font. You can do formatting on the cells or whatever you want to do, which will be covered in the next section in this course. The second method for selecting ranges would be to simply click on the first cell in the range with your mouse button, drag it all the way to the last cell in the range, and releasing the mouse button. To select a row, you would simply just click on the row heading. Remember, rows are numbered, columns are lettered. So we want to select row 3, simply click on there and this entire row is selected. If you want to select multiple rows, so say we want to select row 3 to 7, you'll simply hold down on 3 and drag all the way to 7, and they are all selected. Same with columns, simply click on it or click on a couple of them. If you want to select, say, column B, column E, and column H, you will click on B, remember on the column or row heading. So we'll click on B, we'll click on E, and we'll click on H. So those three individual columns are now selected, and it obviously works the same with the rows as well. In this section of the course, we will cover formatting in Excel. For this lesson, I will just explain a little bit more about what formatting is. So basically, formatting would change how you visibly see the data that you've entered into the cells in an Excel worksheet. That would refer to the type of font, whether the font is bold or underlined, whether the cell is a specific color. It refers to borders or anything that you can visibly see. So as you can see in this little worksheet that we've created here, everything is just standard and bland. So in this section, we will use formatting to make it visibly more appealing. In Excel, there are always two aspects to a number. how the number presents on the screen, which is known as formatting, and the underlying value of the number. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use percentage as an example just to show you how Excel views a specific number. So as I said, there are two ways that a number is represented: the real value of the number and how it is shown to you as the viewer of the spreadsheet. So to do percentage, if we, for instance, press 1 here and I click on the quick formatting percentage here, it shows you 100% because 1 is a full 100%. If we want to do 2%, for instance, we will press 0.02, as that is 2% of 1. If we now highlight the cell and we press there, you'll see that it makes it 2%. But the actual value that we've entered is 0.02, and that is how Excel views it. We'll carry on with a bit more formatting during the rest of this section. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to apply general formatting. Let's first start with correcting the column widths of the dates here. As you can see, this September is cut off because it is longer than the actual width of the column and you can't read it properly. So there are two ways we can do this. If you hover your mouse over the column label here to the end, you'll see that the cursor changes. So one way to do this is to simply click on it and drag it, and then you can decide how wide you want it. Or if we do November, we'll just double click there and it would automatically format the width of the column to the exact required width. We can also see that entertainment is cut off here, so let's just double click there and it would make it the right width. If we want to do a whole lot of them together, we'll highlight, as I've shown you before, how to highlight the multiple columns. So what we can do is simply double click on any one of them, and what it would do is automate the width. So now you can see it would take the maximum length of a specific cell and auto format the width to that length so that it just fits in. But this looks quite silly, so we don't want to do that. So we can highlight them again and use September, as that seems to be the longest one. So when you've highlighted a whole lot of columns and you drag them, it would automatically make them all the exact same width. The next thing we can do is, we are in year 2023, so let's call this January 2023. So either double click or you can click on the active cell in the formula bar and we'll say 2023. Now you'll see that Excel does something with it. It makes it Jan-23. So we want to change this. So what we can do is right click on this active cell. We'll say format cells. We'll go to date. I'll show you date first. And now there are simple options of how we can change the format of this date. When you click on one, it would obviously show you how Excel would present it for you. So right now, if we select this, we want to have the full name of the month and the year. But if we leave it like this, it would put it as 1 January 2023. Let me just click OK so you can see. We'll get back to those error messages later on in the course, but that's simply because the cell wasn't wide enough to show the full value of it. So we don't want it as 1 January, we only want January 2023. So let's go back. We'll click on custom and we'll go to month and year like this, but we don't want it only to show Jan. So what we can do here is add another M there. We don't want the little dash there, we want the space there, and we want the year to be the full year. So we'll make that longer, we'll make that one longer, press OK. You can then go ahead and apply the same formatting to the rest of the months. The next thing we want to do is change the format of the numbers, because right now all we can see here are numbers. So I'm going to cover a couple of ways to do it. First thing we need to do, we need to highlight the whole range of all the numbers. So right click, format cells. Now we can either make it a number. Let's start there. So we don't want any currency shown before it, the currency symbol. We just want to see numbers. So as it is right now, it's perfect because it shows you 2 decimal spaces, which would be the cents. We'll click OK, and you can see they've changed. All of them have changed to this format. If we want to add or remove decimal spaces, we can simply use these buttons here to add on. Maybe you're not working with currency, you're working with something else that requires more decimal spaces. Then you can use these ones here, or you can go back to format cells and put the number of decimal spaces you want in. Let's just make it 5. You'll see that would be what they would come out to. The next formatting for numbers would obviously be currency. You'll choose your currency symbol. Let's just find the US dollar one. Obviously any one of the dollar ones would be the same, but we'll just click on the US dollar one, click OK, and it would put a dollar sign before everyone. So if you are not happy with the way this is outlined, as you can see, all the dollar signs are not in the same, not directly under each other, then we will use accounting. So right click again, format cells, accounting, press OK. So now you can see it lays them out a little bit better. All the dollar signs are on the left and the numbers are directly below each other, and it puts a space after every 1,000. So for instance, I'm just going to make this a big number. You'll see that after every 3 digits there will be a space. Just undo that. So I've shown you the one method on how to use the number formatting, or how to access the format cells section. Another way you can do it, let's just highlight the range again, is to click on this little arrow here. As you can see, it shows accounting because all the cells in this specific range are accounting cells. If we click on this little down arrow, we can change to currency, to number. These are the most commonly used formats that you can use, or you can click on the more number formats and it would take you back to the format cells section. Then the last way to do it would simply be to just click on this little arrow here and it would take you back to that same section. So that concludes our lesson on general formatting. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to change the fonts with regards to the type of font, the font size, and general formatting that you can do on the fonts. So what we can do is just highlight the whole range, our whole table that we're working on. So to change the type of font, we can simply just click the down arrow by the font type here. So let's just change this to another font type. We'll just use Arial Narrow for instance. Okay, so as you can see, all of them have changed. So it goes without saying that if we want to change the font of the months only, we can do that, and you can basically change any cell to whatever font you wanted or a specific range. Now we want to make the column headings bold. So two ways of doing that. Keyboard shortcut would just be Control B, or you can click on the little bold button right here and do the same for the row headings. I'm just going to go back. If we want to do multiple cells at once, so select two ranges at once, we'll select this range with the column headings. You'll hold the control button and you'll select the row headings and make them all bold. And we also want to make the total bold. Now we can also change the font size. Let's say we want to make this a little bit smaller. You can just click here, change the size here, or you'll see there's up and down arrows to increase or decrease the font size. So let's make this 10 and the rest of them 11, so that our headings and totals are a bit more visible. Then we can also do different formatting, like applying italic or underlining, or whatever format you want to apply to make your worksheet as appealing as you would need it to be. And this concludes the lesson on general font formatting. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to use borders as a means of formatting. A border is basically a line that goes around a specific cell, or it can be a double line to either the bottom, the top, the left, or the right of a cell or of an entire range. So I'll show you a couple of different examples. Let's just say we want to create a border right around the whole range here. You can then click on the little border tab here and select what type of border you want. So we just want an outside border. We'll click on the outside border here and you'll see that there's a border right around it. I'll just undo after every application so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So it will always have the last border used as the main selecting border. So if we want to create a border around the date range, we can simply just click on there and you'll see that there's a border around that. We can do the same there and the same there. Okay, let's just take them all away. Now you get different types of borders. We can do a thick border, which means there's a thick border around all of them. We can do all borders, which means it would create a border around every individual cell in the range that you've selected. We can do borders specifically for currencies. So in this case, you can select any one of these borders, which looks nice at the bottom of totals. Let's say we want to leave that one there. We want to put only a bottom border there, and we want to put a border on the right there. So this basically would be a nice border formatting to use with currencies. Let me take this away here. We can also use different border styles, so dotted or lined borders. So let's just say we want to do a border that's dotted like that. You can simply select it and draw where you want the specific border to be. When you are done, simply press the escape button and you see that it's applied the border there. Let's just undo all of them. You can also change the color of the border. So again, change your color and you can draw the border on there. So let me just go back. We'll need to change the style back. It remembers the last style you've used. So let's just change it back to a solid line and you can see that it's there. You can also make it around the range like that. If, for instance, you now select all borders, you'll see that all borders are that specific color because that is the last color you've selected. So you always need to change it back to have them black again. There are a couple of other things that you can do if you want the borders like this, but you want them thick lined. You'll just choose a thicker line border and click on all borders, and the whole range would be thick borders around every individual cell. To remove all the borders, you'll simply select the range and click on no border and it would remove all the borders. So let's leave it, let's apply some different borders here. We'll apply a nice border like that for the currency, and what we can do is apply, what I'm doing right now, I'm holding my control button in and I'm selecting all the ranges because I want to put an individual border around each range. If you want to know what your border would look like, the way that you've selected it, as you can see, the border would be applied to each range as you've selected it. So let's just put a normal outside border on like that. Sorry, I need to undo there. Let's just put a normal outside border and you'll see that this looks like a nice acceptable way to format the borders on this little table. And that concludes borders. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to use wrapping and merging of text and cells in an Excel worksheet. Excel will allow long cell entries to spill across other cells as long as those cells are empty. So let's give this entire little table a name. So we can just say household expenses for the year 2023. So as you can see, it spills over because these cells are empty. Like you've seen before with October and September, as soon as we start entering something into this cell, you can't see the rest of it again. As soon as you remove it, you can see it, but we don't want it there. We actually want it nice and in the middle of the table. So what we can do, we will highlight from column A all the way to column M. Now you'll see there's a little button here where you can merge the cells. So I'm going to do a couple of things. We'll just say merge across first. So it would merge all the cells, but the text would stay to the left. You can then use these formatting buttons here to place the text on the right, to place it in the center, or however you want to do it. Let's just go back. Second way to do it would simply be to press on merge and center. So it would automatically merge all the cells and it would place it in the center of this now newly created cell. So this is the way we want it. We want to make this a little bit bigger than the rest of the text. So let's make it 14. Let's make it bold and let's make it italic, and we'll make this Arial. A second way to change the font would also be to start, if you know the name of the font, you can just start typing it in here. So we want it Arial, start typing until it pops up, press enter, and there we go. We'll put a border around this one as well. And what we can do, we can make this, the height of this row, a bit bigger. Same as what I showed you with the columns. You can draw this down to make the height bigger. But right now, it's right at the bottom. We want it in the middle. So this is where you would use the alignment of the height. So it's either top align, middle align, or bottom align. So let's do middle align, and it would align it nicely in the middle of the cell. The second part of this lesson would, I'll show you how to wrap texts inside a specific cell. So if we just type on here how to wrap text inside a cell. Okay, we don't want it shown like that. We want the cell width or the column width to stay the same, but we want to wrap it, meaning it needs to cut off by wrapped and the rest of them need to go under. So there's a simple button here. This is your wrap text button. Click on that and it would automatically wrap the text inside the specific cell. Now again, we can make that center, we can make it left align, right align, top or middle of cell. That would only work when we make the cell height a bit bigger. So we want it in the middle and in the middle. And that's how to wrap text inside a cell. Another feature that we can use is to change the actual direction. I'm just going to delete this whole row. So let's say we want the totals to be at a bit of an angle. You'll see there is angle directions here. So as you can see, it's now put it at an upward angle. Let's say we want to make this one at a downward angle. So this is how you can select the angle at which the text are displayed inside the cell. We like this one more, so if we want to copy the same style across all of these, you can either select them all and make them all at an upright angle, or we can select the one that you like. You can press on this format painter button and then select all the other cells you want to look the same, and they will all change to the same. Another way to do it would be to right click, copy, select all of them, right click again, and use this formatting paste option, and it would paste them all the same. Let's just type some text in here, direction of text. So I'm going to pull this down a bit like this, just to give us some space here. Now there are different ways that you can do it vertically. If you do it like this, you'll see that each letter is placed directly under the previous letter. So it shows direction of text this way. Second way to do it would be to rotate the text. So it rotates the whole sentence or word or numbers or whatever you've put in there, rotates it downward, or you can rotate it upward. And that concludes the lesson on wrapping text, merging cells, and changing the direction of the text inside a specific cell. I'll see you in the next lesson. In this section, I will teach you a little bit more about functions in Excel. Earlier in the course, I showed you how to use a formula to add all these numbers together. The next method I used was to use the sum function. So this would refer to a function, whereas this would refer to a formula. Functions are simply pre-programmed formulas already provided for you in Excel, which can perform calculations covering a wide range of categories, including statistics, dates and time arithmetic, financial calculations, lists, and much more. Excel has hundreds and hundreds of different functions that can be used, but we will just be covering some basic functions in Excel. Basically, a function would be typed out as an equal sign. You will have the name of the function, and you will have the arguments in brackets pertaining to that specific function. So the sum function, for instance, would be your equal sign, sum, which is the name of the specific function, and what is the argument, what do you want to sum. So you want to sum from C3 to C10. So as you can see, doing it this way is much quicker than individually typing each one of the cells you want to add together. Imagine you add 500 individual cells to add together. To type each cell individually would take you a very long time, whereas using the sum function would have taken a couple of seconds. If we want to do a quick sum function on the specific cell, there's a specific button here that says sum. You can literally just click on it. It would highlight the range automatically for you because Excel can see where the numbers start and where the numbers end, and you can just press enter, or we can say sum, open the brackets, highlight the range, close the brackets, and press enter. So all of these perform the exact same as a formula where you plus them all together, just much quicker. If you want to insert a function to perform a specific calculation, there's a little button next to the formula bar, this FX button, which would be your insert function button. When clicking here, you can either search for a specific function or go through here. So you'll see this is most recently used. You can do all of them: financial, date and time, mathematical, statistical, or whatever you want to perform. So just to show you, these are all the different types of functions that you can do in an Excel spreadsheet. I will not be covering all of this, but you are more than welcome to look at my more advanced courses to learn how to do all the functions available in Excel. Thank you, and I will see you in the next lesson where we will explore functions a little bit more. In this lesson, I will show you how to use the average function. If we look at our little spreadsheet here, we want to know what the average is for the year that we spend on a specific expense. So right now we cannot put the average at the bottom because it won't make sense in this format. So we can always put it on the right here. So let's just call this one the heading here, averages. As explained, we can copy the format, put it there, and let's just unmerge and remerge that so that it's aligned again. And we want to copy this whole format there, like that. Okay, so we want to use the average function. So two ways to do it, as explained. equal button, we can start typing average. Excel will always give you everything pertaining to what you are starting to type. So average, remember it's the name of the function, open a bracket, and we want the average between all of these numbers. So we select that range and we close the bracket again. So they are all 1800 or 1800, so the average would obviously be the same. So where the sum function adds them all together, the average would basically add them all together and divide it by the number of arguments in the specific range. The second way to use a function would be to click on this little insert function. We want to do average again, so you can start by either searching for average. If you've used it recently, it should show here, but I'll show you the long way first. So let's type average, we'll search it, you'll see average is there. So press OK there. Now this shows you a little bit different. So again, we want to just highlight the whole range. So highlight the range up to there, and then you press OK, and it shows you the average for all these expenses is 220. If we delete that, we do it the other way. Average of this range here, it's 220. Now instead of typing each one of them individually, Excel allows you to complete the series like you've done it with January to December or 1 to 10, where you can simply drag this down all the way to there, and it would copy the formula based on the exact same range. So as you can see here, that would be the average of each of the expenses listed here. If we were to use average as a formula and not as a function, we would have to type everything out. So let's just do it so that you can see. As you can see, the average is 143 and 75 cents here. So let's delete that and do it the long way. So we'll do like simple mathematics, B7 plus C7 and so on. Let's just do all of them. So now we've added them all together. Like mathematics, you obviously need to place them in brackets because we're now going to divide them. If you don't place them in brackets, it will simply just divide the last one and not all of them as a sum together. So we want to divide them by how much. Now you have to physically go and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So divide by 12, press enter, and it would show you 143.75. So now you can obviously see the difference between a function, which is a very short, quick way of doing it, and typing out a formula to perform the same calculation. And that concludes this lesson on how to use the average function. I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to use the min or the minimum and the max or the maximum functions. So what we can do is, let's just delete everything that we've got here. We'll call this minimum. We'll start with the minimum function first. So again, two ways. We can press equal the name of the function we want to use, which is min. Open your brackets, select the range that you want to use, close your brackets again, and obviously all these numbers are exactly the same, so it would just show you 1800. I'm going to now show you how to copy this function to the rest of the cells in a different way than before. So again, right click, copy, or simply Control C, highlight all of these cells, right click again, and then as you can see there, that shows you the function or the formulas. So it would copy the function or the formula of the cell that you've copied to all these. Simply click on that, and let's just double check it quickly. It says that for fuel, the minimum month spent was $110. So if we go over here, we'll see, oh, okay, there it is. October was $110. To use the maximum function, let's do this the other way. We'll click on here, we'll type max, click OK, highlight your range again, and copy this, paste the functions, and now this one, the most we've spent on fuel for the year in a specific month was 190. Another way this can also be done would be to simply highlight your range first. You can click on this here, which are your quick functions, and you can select which function you want to do. So if we click max there, it would automatically place this in the next available open cell. Just to show you that it works down rows as well, I'll select all the expenses, and let's see what was the maximum expense for the month of December. It was 1,800, which you can clearly see there. So also just another way on how you can perform functions in Excel. In this lesson, I will just go over some common error messages that you might see in an Excel spreadsheet when you perform a formula or a function. I'll start with the first one, which are all the little hashtags. So the reason for this would simply be because the width of your column is not big enough to display the value that your formula is trying to calculate. So for instance, if we want to do the sum of all of these numbers, we press enter, it shows that simply because it cannot display the full value. So you can either fix this by making the font size smaller or simply dragging your column width. The second one would be if you've got a range of numbers, but one of them is not an actual number. So we want to add them all together like this. You press enter, it shows you the value error message because one of these in your range is not an actual number. The next one would be the divide by zero error message, because you basically can't divide something by zero. So if we say D15, which is that number, divided by either typing in 0 or divide by the next cell, which is 0, it would show you that you cannot divide something by 0. Then the last common error message that you might see is the name error message. So you want the sum of all of these, but you spell sum like that. Let's just select the range. So because you've spelled sum wrong, it would show you the name error message in that case. And that covers all the common error messages that you might see in an Excel spreadsheet. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lesson. In this section, we will be covering the quick analysis tool that Excel has developed to make things easier for its users. In this lesson, I'll just explain a bit more so that you can understand what quick analysis is. Quick analysis tools were developed in response to the fact that users weren't using or even aware of all the more powerful analytical tools found in Excel. So Excel decided to combine live preview with some of these tools to create the quick analysis tools. First thing we need to do is select a range like this, and then you'll see there's a little button here that pops up, which are your quick analysis tools. So if we click on here, you'll see there are quite a lot of different quick things that we can do with this range with regards to the tools that Excel has available. In the rest of this section, we'll go through each one of these quickly so that you can see. But so just to show you what they mean with incorporating live preview with the quick analysis, if you were to hover over the specific quick analysis tool that you can use, it would give you a live preview of what it would look like when you select a specific one. In this lesson, I will show you a little bit more about the quick analysis and specifically quick formatting. So what we can do is highlight all our expenses again, not including the totals. Let's click on the quick analysis button here, and we can start with the data bars. So as I explained, it shows a live preview. So what the data bars would do is represent the size of the selected values. The next one would be the color scale. So what Excel would do is highlight the highest values as green and the lowest values as red. And then the values in between would either be a lighter red, or it would change colors as the value goes up. So as you can see on top, the 1800 and then this 1100 and the 900 are shades of green, and all the lower numbers are shades of red, and the numbers in between are more like a gray shade. The next option would be icon set. So in this case, Excel would highlight the higher numbers with a green arrow showing up, the lower numbers with red arrows showing down, and the in-between numbers with an arrow pointing to the right. The next one is the greater than quick formatting. On this one, it doesn't show a live preview because you need to give it some rules. So when you click on it, and let's say we want to highlight all the cells higher than 700, then you can actually see what it does. So every cell that's higher than 700, which does not include 700, would be highlighted with whatever your argument is here. So you can change your yellow fill with dark yellow text, light red fill, green fill, or you can also do a custom format on this one. The next one would be the top 10%. So in this case, only 1800 would be the top 10%. And that concludes the quick analysis and specifically quick formatting. And I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, I'll show you how to use the quick charting tool provided by Excel. So for the charts, I'll select the range including the dates and the expense type. So again, let's click on the quick analysis. We'll go to charts. The first option you can get would be the line charts, which would then show your chart in a line format. The next one would be clustered columns, which would basically be your standard type of chart or graph used. As you can see, it gives you the different colors for the categories and the totals on the left. The next one would be your stacked area chart, which shows it stacked together. This way you can also clearly see which month had the most expenses. And the last one would be stacked columns, which is more or less the same as stacked area, but just in a column format. If we were to select one of these charts, let's just click on one of them. It shows you a little chart. When you hover over the specific expense, it highlights that specific one for you. And that concludes this lesson on quick charts. In this lesson, I'll show you how to use the quick totals tool that's provided by the quick analysis. So again, what we'll do is, to start this, I'm actually going to just delete the totals there. We'll highlight the range of all the values only. Click on the quick analysis. Let's go to totals. So just to give you a quick explanation, you'll see that some of these have the bottom cells highlighted in blue, and some of them have the cells to the right highlighted in orange. So this would be to add the totals of each row and place them in the row just below the last selected item in the range, and the orange ones would be to add the totals of each column and add it to the column of the right. So when we just click on sum here, it would just basically give us the sum of each individual row or month in our case. Let's remove this. We'll apply this when we're done with this lesson. Let's just highlight it again, go to the next one, totals. That would be the average. So average would not make sense in a row format. So if we go to the right here and we select average as a column, it would basically give us the average like we calculated earlier in the course. The next option would be the count. So counting would basically just count every cell in the range that has a value in. It does not have to be a specifically a number. If we were to count there, it would show you 8. So let's highlight January, the month, as well. Let's go back to count, and you'll see that it shows 9 because count doesn't work on values only. Let's just go to the next one. The next one would be the percentage. So if we add all of these together, all the percentages, it would add up to 100%. So this means that out of the whole year, let's just add all of these together just so that you can see. So that's 100%. 100% expenditure for the year. The most we've spent was in December, 9.9%, and the least would have been in February, 7.8%. Let's see what the next option is. So the next option would be a running total. So a running total basically means that at the end of January we've spent $4,590. Then it just continues. At the end of February, it was 8,900, and so on. And in total for the whole year, we've spent $56,235. This would work well if you want to use it for accounting purposes where you would need running totals. And yes, that concludes this lesson. I just want to go back and add the sum of each column again, and there we are back. In this lesson, I will show you how to use the quick Sparklines tool found in the quick analysis. So let's highlight our range again. We'll click quick analysis, we'll go to Sparklines. So if we go over lines, what Sparklines are basically mini charts that's placed in the cell next to your range. So it's a mini chart inside its own individual cell. So what the lines would do is show you how that specific expense in our case have moved up from month to month. That's why the rent, the car expense, and the medical and the school would just be straight lines as they are fixed expenses, whereas the other ones would move up or down for each month. Then you can see you've got different Sparkline options to use, lines or columns that would show you how your expenses for the specific expense has gone up and or down throughout the year. That concludes this. In this lesson, I will show you how to use quick tables as part of the quick analysis tools. So for a table, we'll select our whole range like this, click on the quick analysis, and we'll select tables. It only gives you the one option of converting it to a table. So when we click on that, it basically converts this into a table. Now from here you can use different table styles to present your table and play around with and see how you can do it. You can also see that it automatically puts filters here. So if you've got a very large table and you want to only view the expenses for medical for the year, you'll just untick select all, click medical only, and it will take everything else away so that you can concentrate only on that one. And yes, that concludes the lesson on using quick tables as part of the quick analysis tools. Thank you. In this section, which is the last section of this course, I will show you how to finalize the worksheet. Basically how you can save your workbook, print your workbook, and also convert your workbook into a PDF document. So let's start by first saving it. A couple of ways, like any Office program, you can click on the save there. If you've already saved it, you'll basically just click there to quick save it, or you can go to the file and save from there. So let's just use the quick one, save it, and let's just select where we want it. We'll save this on the desktop, and we'll just call this household expenses and save it. So as you can see, it's now saved onto my desktop. This second file is shown purely because the specific workbook is open in Excel at the moment. So it would always show a transparent copy of the workbook that is specifically open if you're in that exact folder on your computer. So the next thing to do would be to print this. Either you want to print it onto a paper or print it or save it as a PDF. So the first thing we need to do is to navigate to File and click on Print. So from here it will show you a preview. Now obviously this doesn't look right. You can change a couple of things here. What do you want to print? Just this active sheet, or do you want to print your entire workbook, or print selection? So if you want to print a selection, so you don't want to show everything, you just want to print this part here, so that is what you've selected. That would be where the print selection would come into play. But we want to print the whole sheet. I don't have a printer connected, that's why it shows PDF Creator here. How do you want to print it? As a portrait or a landscape? In this case it would look better as a landscape layout. This would simply be the size, the paper size that you're using to print on. This would be your margins and your scaling. So we do need to change a couple of things here. So we'll use some narrow margins just to bring it more to the sides of the paper, but it still doesn't fit completely. So that is where the scaling comes in. So we can shrink it to fit the whole sheet on one page, which would basically be what we would need to do. You can also fit only the rows, so it would cut off the columns again, or fit all the columns. As you can see, fit all the columns and fit the sheet shows you the exact same thing. This is purely because there's not enough rows to carry on over to a next page. If you were to have 200 or 300 rows, then the best option would be to fit the columns in one page so that the text is still readable. So we'll just use fit sheet on one page, and then you can print it onto a paper with your printer. If we save it again now, it would save that setting. So if we go back to print, you'll see that it's back to that. So to print it to a PDF, if you have PDF Creator installed like I do, you can just simply print it and it would save the file as a PDF. Or you can go to Save As. You'll change the type of file here to PDF and save it, simple as that. So as you can see, there's the PDF copy of this worksheet. Let's open that up. And there you have a PDF copy of your worksheet. Thank you so much. This concludes my course on Excel for beginners, but I do have a little bonus lesson after this one that you can take before receiving your course certificate. In this bonus lesson, I will show you how to use two of the more advanced functions available in Excel. So what I've done is just created a little table with some employees that are either males or females with a yearly bonus that they've received. So the first function we will use is the SUMIF function, and then I'll show you how to use the COUNTIF function. So simple again, you start with equals, you type out the name of your function, which is SUMIF, and then you add your criteria. Open your brackets. So the range that we want to apply the criteria on would be this range here, because we want to see how much was spent in total on the female employees and how much was spent in total on the male employees. So we use this range here. That would be your range. Then you'll put a semicolon. Criteria is male. So that means if the value of the cell is male. And then your sum range would then be the range here. We'll close the brackets and press enter. Let me just make that. So that means on the male employees, a total of $14,150 was spent. We can do the same for female. So again, we'll type sum if, open your brackets, your range, semicolon, it needs to be female for it to sum it, and the sum range, and close your brackets and press enter. Now of course what we can do is just double check ourselves. So the total was $24,000. If we do it here, we'll see that it's 24,000. So we know that our formula worked correctly. Now count just one that I've added on just to see how many of the employees are male and how many are female. So it would work the same, equals the name of the function, open the brackets. What is the range? The range is male or female. And what is your criteria? It needs to be male. Close your brackets and we'll see that there are 5 male employees. The same with female. Count if, open the brackets, select your range, semicolon, the criteria needs to be female, close your brackets, 5 males and 3 females, so we can physically count 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To work out how many employees are in total, I'll just add a last one here. So we will do count and then A. Count would refer to numbers, and count A would refer to any data in a range. So let's just count that, and we'll see that there's 8 employees total, and 5 plus 3 equals 8. Just to add some of the more advanced functions that you can use in Excel, but please look out for some of my more advanced or intermediate courses where I will be covering everything that you can do in Excel. Thank you so much for taking this course.